Ah, the good old days of school lunches, back when lunchboxes were metal and clunky, and the biggest flex you could pull was trading snacks in the cafeteria. Before fancy Lunchables and pre-packaged snacks took over, school lunches were all about simplicity and creativity, and some of those foods were straight up weird, but we loved them anyway. These were the foods that made us smile, cringe, and beg for more. The iconic lunchbox staples that are practically extinct today. Whether you were that kid who loved sardine sandwiches or the one who traded Fig Newton for pudding cups, there's no denying the nostalgic charm of these old school lunches. So today, we're bringing back 50 forgotten school lunches that once ruled the cafeteria. From sweet marshmallow fluff sandwiches to savory liverwurst on rye, these are the foods that shaped a generation and then vanished from our tables. So grab a seat at the nostalgia table and get ready to relive the sweet and salty world of vintage school lunches. Canned pear halves.
I'm going to share with you how to can pears at home.
Let's kick this list off with canned pear halves, a total lunchbox classic back in the day. If you've never had them, just imagine perfectly sliced, syrup-soaked pear halves packed in heavy syrup that was basically liquid gold. These weren't just any pears. They were delicate, sweet, and almost melt-in-your-mouth soft. Canned pear halves were a lunchtime favorite because they were cheap, convenient, and just fancy enough to make you feel like you were eating a gourmet fruit cup. They came in those little metal cans with pull tabs that made you feel weirdly powerful when you popped them open. Total boss move. The pears were sweet, syrupy, and just the right amount of squishy, making them easy to eat with a plastic spoon. Some kids drank the syrup straight from the can. No shame here. It was basically liquid candy, and if you were feeling extra fancy, you could bring a few maraschino cherries to plop in the middle of each pear half, turning them into little edible flower arrangements. Some kids even sprinkled cinnamon on top for that extra bougie touch. So why did this lunchbox staple fade away? Blame it on the health craze. Once fresh fruit became more accessible and parents started worrying about all that sugar in the syrup, canned pears got replaced by apple slices and orange wedges. But if you wanted something more snacky and savory, cheese and crackers packs were the next big thing. Cheese and crackers pack. Alright, if you grew up in the 80s or 90s, you definitely remember cheese and crackers packs, the OG Lunchables. These weren't just any cheese and crackers though. They were perfectly square crackers with processed cheese slices or a little tub of spreadable cheese and a red plastic stick for spreading. Iconic. Why were they so popular? Because they were convenient, fun, and perfectly portioned. Parents loved them because they were pre-packaged and easy to throw into a lunchbox. And let's be honest, they were fun to eat. Stacking crackers, cheese, and maybe even some cold cuts into little sandwiches was basically edible Legos. Some versions even came with a tiny dessert, like a piece of chocolate or a cookie, making them the ultimate lunchbox treat. But if you wanted something more substantial and homemade, egg salad sandwiches were the move. Egg salad sandwich.
It's really hard to say no to a good egg salad sandwich, so today we're making a New York deli-style egg salad sandwich.
Alright, let's get into egg salad sandwiches, the unsung heroes of retro school lunches. If you've never had one, just picture chopped hard-boiled eggs mixed with mayonnaise, mustard, salt, and pepper, piled high on soft white bread. It was creamy, tangy, and just a little bit messy. Egg salad sandwiches were cheap, easy to make, and packed with protein, making them a parent's go-to lunchbox filler. They were also ridiculously customizable. Some parents added chopped celery or onions for crunch, while others sprinkled in paprika or dill for extra flavor. But here's the catch. They were messy. If you didn't wrap them up tight, you'd end up with a soggy, eggy disaster by lunchtime. And the smell, let's just say it was distinct. You either loved it or held your nose the whole lunch period. No in between. So why did they fall out of favor? Blame it on refrigeration. With schools getting stricter about food safety and allergies, mayonnaise-based sandwiches became a risky choice. Plus, the rise of pre-packaged, no-smell snacks made egg salad feel a little too old school. But if you were craving something sweet and easy, chocolate pudding cups were another thing you absolutely had to try. Chocolate pudding cup.
Oh, if you like a party, you'll love the taste of Snack Pack. 'Cause Snack Pack makes pudding a party.
Chocolate pudding cups were the undisputed champions of 80s and 90s lunchboxes. If you had one of these in your lunch, you were basically a celebrity at the cafeteria table. Everyone wanted to trade with you. These weren't just any pudding cups. They were creamy, chocolatey, and just the right amount of sweet. Made by brands like Hunt's Snack Pack or Jell-O, these little plastic cups were the perfect size for a quick, sweet treat. And let's be real, the best part was licking the foil lid. Why were they so popular? Because they were fun, delicious, and easy to pack. Unlike Unlike messy homemade desserts, these cups were self-contained. No spills, no fuss. Plus, they were cheap and had a long shelf life, making them a parent's best friend. Some kids even got creative and crushed up their graham crackers or vanilla wafers to sprinkle on top, making their own makeshift chocolate parfaits. Total trendsetters. But if you wanted something more savory and filling, corned beef sandwiches were the old school lunch hero. Corned beef sandwich. Alright, let's talk about the corned beef sandwich, a total lunchbox legend that was hearty, salty, and downright delicious. If you've never had it, think about thin slices of salty, brined corned beef piled high on rye bread with mustard or sauerkraut. It was savory, tangy, and ridiculously filling. Corned beef sandwiches were popular because they were rich, flavorful, and packed with protein. The corned beef was salty, tender, and perfectly spiced, making it the star of the sandwich. And let's not forget the rye bread. It was soft, chewy, and just a little bit sour, complementing the salty beef perfectly. Some versions even added Swiss cheese or a pickle on the side, making it a full-on flavor explosion. Why were these such a big deal? Because they were hearty, filling, and a little bit fancy. Corned beef wasn't the cheapest lunch meat, so having it in your sandwich meant you were eating well. It was the kind of sandwich that made you feel grown up, like you were eating something you'd get at a real deli. Plus, they were super versatile. Some parents got creative and turned them into Reubens, adding sauerkraut, Russian dressing, and grilled rye bread. Others kept it simple with just corned beef and mustard, letting the salty, spicy beef do all the talking. But if you wanted something sweet and creamy to balance out all that salt, tapioca pudding cups were the perfect follow-up. Tapioca pudding cup.
Hi guys, I'm Laura Vitale. On this episode of Laura in the Kitchen, I want to show you how I like to make tapioca pudding.
Tapioca pudding cups, the unsung heroes of vintage lunchboxes. If you've never had one, just picture a creamy sweet pudding with little chewy pearls of tapioca scattered throughout. It was smooth, rich, and just a little bit bouncy. Tapioca pudding cups were the perfect blend of creamy and chewy, making them weirdly addictive. The little tapioca pearls were like tiny bursts of joy in every spoonful, giving the pudding a fun, playful texture that was way more exciting than plain old chocolate or vanilla. Why were they so popular? Because they were sweet, creamy, and a little fancy. Unlike regular pudding cups, tapioca had an exotic vibe because the pearls were made from cassava root, a tropical plant. Who knew you were eating something so fancy in your lunchbox? Plus, they were super convenient. These pudding cups were self-contained, no spills, no fuss, and didn't need refrigeration, making them a parent's best friend. You could just pop one in your lunchbox with a spoon, and dessert was handled. And let's not forget the flavors. While vanilla was the classic, some brands experimented with chocolate, caramel, or even coconut, giving you a little taste of paradise in every bite. And honestly, licking the lid was half the fun. No shame. If you wanted something more savory and filling, cold meat pie was the next retro lunch hero. Cold meat pie.
Buddy, it's Tom Henry's Tattoos. I'm going to show you how to make Australian meat pies. Let's get straight into it.
This one's a bit of a blast from the past, but cold meat pie was a total lunchbox legend back in the day. If you've never had one, just imagine flaky pastry filled with seasoned ground meat, vegetables, and a rich gravy, all served cold. It was savory, filling, and just a little bit fancy. Cold meat pies were hearty and satisfying, making them a total power lunch. The filling was usually made from ground beef, pork, or chicken, mixed with onions, peas, carrots, and spices, then encased in flaky, buttery pastry. When chilled, the filling firmed up, making it easy to eat on the go without falling apart. Why were they so popular? Because they were cheap, filling, and didn't need to be reheated. You could make them ahead of time, pack them in a lunchbox, and eat them cold with no fuss. Plus, they were portable, compact, and tasted just as good at room temperature. And let's be real, they were delicious. The combination of savory meat, rich gravy, and buttery crust was comfort food at its finest. Some people even added hard-boiled eggs to the filling for an extra protein boost. High-class move. But if you were craving something sweet and fruity, fruit cocktail cups were the next lunchtime staple. Fruit cocktail cup. Fruit cocktail cups were perfectly diced peaches, pears, grapes, and cherries, packed in heavy syrup that was basically liquid candy. These weren't just any fruit cups, they were bright, colorful, and ridiculously sweet. And let's be honest, everyone fought over the cherries. There were usually only 2 or 3 bright red maraschino cherry halves in each cup, and if you scored one, you were basically royalty. These cups were sweet, juicy, and just the right amount of squishy. crunchy, making them easy to eat with a plastic spoon. The syrup was thick, sugary, and almost addictive, coating each piece of fruit in a shiny, sugary glaze. Some kids even drank the syrup straight from the cup. Why were they so popular? Because they were cheap, convenient, and felt fancy. Canned fruit was considered a luxury item before refrigeration was common, so having perfectly ripe fruit all year round felt like a total flex. And because they were pre-packaged, self-contained, and no mess, they were a parent's dream. Just pop one in the lunchbox with a spoon, and dessert was handled. They were also super versatile. Some kids mixed them into their Jell-O cups to create DIY fruit gelatin, while others topped them with whipped cream for a makeshift fruit parfait. But if you wanted something salty and nostalgic, fried bologna sandwiches were up next. Fried bologna sandwich.
To relive all them childhood memories about the best sandwich you ever had in your life, the classic bologna sandwich even better.
Fried bologna sandwiches were the unsung heroes of retro lunches. If you've never had one, just picture thick slices of bologna fried until crispy and golden, then piled onto white bread with mustard. These sandwiches were cheap, filling, and packed with flavor. The bologna curled up into crispy, salty cups when fried, giving it a crunchy, caramelized edge that tasted almost like bacon. It was salty, smoky, and just a little bit greasy, making it the ultimate comfort food. And let's be real, it smelled amazing. When you opened your lunchbox, that salty, smoky aroma filled the cafeteria, making everyone's mouth water. Why were they so popular? Because they were quick, cheap, and delicious. Bologna was one of the most affordable lunch meats, and frying it turned it into something special. It was crispy on the edges, juicy in the middle, and tasted way fancier than it actually was. Plus, they were super customizable. Some people added cheese slices, lettuce, or pickles for extra crunch, while others spread on ketchup or mayo for a tangy kick. You could stack the bologna slices high or keep it simple with just one slice. But if you wanted something sweet and creamy, rice pudding was the move. Rice pudding, the creamy, comforting dessert that was basically a hug in a cup. If you've never had it, just imagine soft, tender rice cooked in sweetened milk with a hint of vanilla and cinnamon. It was thick, rich, and perfectly spiced, making it the ultimate comfort food. Rice pudding was smooth, creamy, and just the right amount of sweet. The rice was soft and tender, giving it a slightly chewy texture that made each bite feel cozy and satisfying. Some versions had a sprinkle of cinnamon on top, while others were topped with a dollop of whipped cream or even a handful of raisins for extra sweetness. Why was it so popular? Because it was cheap, filling, and delicious. Made from simple pantry staples like rice, milk, sugar, and cinnamon, rice pudding was budget-friendly and ridiculously easy to make. It was thick, creamy, and comforting, making it the perfect ending to any lunch. Plus, it was super versatile. Some people made it with coconut milk for a tropical twist, while others added nutmeg or vanilla extract for extra flavor. It could be served warm or chilled, making it perfect for any season. However, as more modern desserts like yogurt cups, pudding packs, and fruit snacks became popular, rice pudding started to feel a little too old-fashioned. But if you wanted something savory and tangy, deviled eggs were up next. Deviled eggs. These were hard-boiled eggs sliced in half, with the yolks scooped out and mixed with mayonnaise, mustard, vinegar, and spices, then piped back into the egg whites in pretty little swirls. Fancy, right? Deviled eggs were creamy, tangy, and just a little bit spicy. The filling was rich and velvety, with a perfect balance of savory egg yolk, tangy mustard, and creamy mayo. Some people added a splash of pickle juice or a dash of hot sauce for extra zing, while others sprinkled paprika on top for a little color and kick. Total flavor explosion. They were rich, filling, and packed with protein, making them a perfect bite-sized energy boost. Plus, they were fancy enough for a party, but portable enough for a lunchbox. Best of both worlds. They were also fun to eat. Popping creamy, tangy egg halves in your mouth felt oddly luxurious, like you were eating something way fancier than cafeteria food. Some people even got creative and added toppings like bacon bits, chives, or olives, turning them into mini gourmet bites. Plus, they were super customizable. You could make them spicy, sweet, tangy, or smoky, depending on how you seasoned the filling. Total versatility. And if you packed them just right, they held up beautifully in a lunchbox. No mess, no fuss. If you wanted something creamy and cheesy, but a little more spreadable, pimento cheese sandwiches were the next big thing. Pimento cheese sandwich? Alright, let's talk about pimento cheese sandwiches. The ultimate retro comfort food. If you've never had one, just imagine a creamy, cheesy spread made from shredded cheddar cheese, mayonnaise, and diced pimentos, slathered on soft white bread for a salty, tangy, cheesy explosion in every bite. The shredded cheddar was sharp and salty, while the mayonnaise made it rich and velvety. But the real stars were the pimentos, small sweet red peppers that added a little little pop of sweetness and a subtle kick. It was sweet, salty, creamy, and spicy all at once, making every bite super satisfying. These sandwiches were easy to make, cheap, and packed with flavor. You could mix up a batch of pimento cheese in minutes, slap it between 2 slices of bread, and boom, lunch was ready. Plus, they were perfectly spreadable and didn't get soggy, making them ideal for lunchboxes. And let's talk about texture. The shredded cheese gave it a little bit of chew, while the pimentos added tiny bursts of flavor. Some people even added a dash of hot sauce or a sprinkle of paprika for extra spice. Total flavor bomb. But if you wanted something warm and comforting, tuna casserole in a thermos was the next go-to. Tuna casserole, picture tender egg noodles tossed with tuna, peas, and a creamy sauce made from cream of mushroom soup, all topped with crunchy potato chips or buttery breadcrumbs. Tuna casserole was rich, creamy, and just the right amount of salty. The egg noodles were soft and tender, soaking up the savory, mushroomy sauce. The tuna was flaky and salty, adding a touch of briny goodness, while the peas added a pop of sweetness and color. But the best part? The crunchy topping. Whether it was potato chips or breadcrumbs, it added a crispy, salty contrast that made every bite ridiculously satisfying. These were super popular in lunchboxes because they were warm, filling, and easy to pack. Moms would heat up a big scoop of tuna casserole in the morning, pack it in a thermos, and by lunchtime, it was still warm and perfectly creamy. Tuna casserole was also cheap and easy to make. It used pantry staples like canned tuna, egg noodles, and condensed soup, making it a budget-friendly lunch that still felt cozy and homemade. If you wanted something simpler but just as nostalgic, bread and butter sandwiches were the next big thing. Bread and butter sandwich. Bread and butter sandwiches, the simplest, most nostalgic lunchbox staple of all time. Soft white bread slathered with creamy butter, sprinkled with a little sugar, and then pressed together into a sweet, buttery sandwich. Simple, sweet, and weirdly satisfying. Bread and butter sandwiches were basic but delicious. The soft, pillowy white bread was light and fluffy, while the butter was creamy, rich, and just a little salty. Some versions were sprinkled with granulated sugar for a sweet crunch, while others kept it simple with just butter and a pinch of salt. It was sweet, salty, and buttery all at once, making it the perfect combination of flavors. These were super popular because they were cheap, easy, and took about 2 seconds to make. They were perfect for picky eaters who didn't want anything too complicated, and they were almost impossible to mess up. No crusts, no problem. They were soft, sweet, and melted in your mouth. Some parents even got creative and toasted the bread first, making a warm, crispy version that was almost like a dessert. Others added cinnamon or a drizzle of honey for extra sweetness. If you wanted something a little fancier but just as creamy, cottage cheese and pineapple was the next big thing. Cottage cheese and pineapple. This retro lunchbox combo consisted of creamy, slightly tangy cottage cheese topped with sweet, juicy pineapple chunks, all packed into a little plastic cup or a reusable container. Simple, sweet, and surprisingly refreshing. The cottage cheese was creamy and slightly salty, while the pineapple was sweet and tangy, making it the perfect balance of flavors. The juicy tropical pineapple cut through the rich, creamy cottage cheese, making each bite feel light and refreshing. And let's talk about texture. The creamy, curdy cottage cheese was soft and velvety, while the pineapple chunks were firm and juicy, giving every spoonful a satisfying mix of creamy and juicy, weirdly addictive. This combo was also super customizable. Some people added a drizzle of honey or a sprinkle of cinnamon for extra sweetness, while others mixed in walnuts or coconut flakes for crunch. It was sweet, salty, creamy, and tangy all at once, making it ridiculously satisfying. These were perfect for lunchboxes because they were light, portable, and easy to pack. They didn't need refrigeration for a few hours, making them super convenient for busy mornings. If you wanted something just as creamy but a little more savory, chicken salad sandwiches were the move. Chicken salad sandwich. Alright, let's talk about chicken salad sandwiches, the creamy, savory lunchbox classics that were filling, flavorful, and just a little bit fancy. If you've never had one, just picture shredded chicken mixed with mayonnaise, celery, salt, and pepper, piled high on soft white bread for a creamy, crunchy, savory bite. Chicken salad sandwiches were rich, creamy, and just the right amount of salty. The shredded chicken was tender and juicy, while the mayonnaise made it creamy and flavorful. The celery added a satisfying crunch, while a sprinkle of salt and pepper tied it all together. Total flavor explosion. And let's be real, these were power sandwiches. If you had chicken salad in your lunchbox, you meant business. They were rich, filling, and packed with protein, making them perfect for busy school days. Plus, they were creamy, savory, and ridiculously satisfying. Total lunch win. These were also super customizable. Some people added grapes, apples, or cranberries for a touch of sweetness, while others mixed in walnuts or pecans for crunch. You could even add curry powder or Dijon mustard for an extra kick. Total flavor flavor bomb. If you wanted something creamy but a little sweeter, Prune Whip was the next go-to. Prune Whip.
I'm Brad Loakley, and today we'll be trying Frito's Prune Whip.
This was one of the fanciest desserts you could find in a 60s lunchbox, and believe it or not, it was surprisingly delicious. If you've never heard of it, Prune Whip was made by whipping egg whites until they were light and fluffy, then folding in sweetened pureed prunes and a splash of lemon juice to create a light, airy mousse that was sweet, tangy, and just a little bit tart. Prune Whip was sweet, creamy, and melt-in-your-mouth fluffy. The egg whites were light and airy, giving it a cloud-like texture that was almost meringue-like. The pureed prunes were sweet, rich, and just a little bit sticky, balancing out the light, fluffy egg whites perfectly. And the lemon juice? It added a touch of tartness that kept the dessert from being too sweet or heavy. It was sweet, tangy, and perfectly balanced. This dessert was fancy, old-fashioned, and a little bit quirky. It was one of those vintage recipes that felt like it belonged at a ladies' luncheon or a church potluck, but somehow made its way into retro lunchboxes as a sweet, fluffy treat. It was light, refreshing, and sweet enough to feel like a dessert, but just healthy enough to pass as a snack. For those who were into sweet and savory combos, bologna and ketchup sandwiches were also available. Bologna and ketchup sandwich. Back in the day, bologna and ketchup sandwiches were the ultimate budget-friendly lunch, and yes, they were actually delicious. This wasn't just any sandwich. It was made by stacking thin slices of bologna on soft white bread and slathering on sweet, tangy ketchup for a combination that was salty, sweet, and a little bit tangy. It was simple, cheap, and oddly addictive. Bologna and ketchup sandwiches were sweet, salty, and just the right amount of tangy. The bologna was salty, smoky, and a little bit greasy, giving it that satisfying, savory flavor that made you feel weirdly satisfied. The ketchup was sweet and tangy, balancing out the saltiness of the bologna perfectly. Together, they made a surprisingly delicious combo that was sweet, salty, tangy, and just a little messy. This was the definition of a no-frills lunch. It was cheap, easy, and took about 2 seconds to make. You just stacked the bologna, squirted on the ketchup, slapped on the other slice of bread, and called it a day. No fancy toppings, no special bread, just classic white sandwich bread, bologna, and ketchup. Straight to the point. And if you were feeling fancy, toasting the bread gave it a little extra crunch, or you could grill it like a grilled cheese. Some people even added potato chips inside for extra crunch. For those who preferred something sweet and fruity, pineapple upside-down cake slices were the next go-to. Pineapple upside-down cake slice.
If you've ever been intrigued by the retro amazingness that is a pineapple upside down
cake slices were the ultimate lunchbox treat. If you've never had one, just imagine a golden buttery cake topped with caramelized pineapple rings and bright red maraschino cherries baked upside down and then flipped to reveal a glossy, gooey, fruity topping. It was sweet, sticky, and absolutely irresistible. These cake slices were rich, moist, and bursting with tropical flavor. The cake itself was buttery and tender, soaking up the caramelized pineapple juices to become incredibly moist and flavorful. The pineapple rings were sweet and juicy, while the maraschino cherries added a pop of bright red color and a sugary, candy-like sweetness that made every bite feel extra special. It was sweet, fruity, and ridiculously delicious. This dessert was a total showstopper. The cake was baked upside down with the pineapple rings and cherries on the bottom, then flipped over to reveal a beautiful, glossy, caramelized fruit topping. If you pulled off the flip perfectly, major bragging rights. The cake looked fancy, shiny, and downright impressive, making it feel like a special occasion even on a regular school day. Some parents even got creative and added coconut flakes or chopped nuts for extra texture and flavor, while others used boxed cake mix to make it even easier. It was sweet, buttery, and totally nostalgic. For those who preferred something savory and meaty, head cheese sandwiches were the next big thing. Head cheese sandwich. Alright, let's get into head cheese sandwiches, the old school deli meat that was rich, savory, and definitely an acquired taste. Despite the name, head cheese isn't cheese at all. It's made from sliced cold cuts of gelatinous, seasoned meat, traditionally made from pig's head, tongue, or feet, set in a gelatinous aspic and sliced into thin, meaty slices that were salty, savory, and full of flavor. Head cheese was rich, meaty, and just a little bit funky. The meat was tender and flavorful, while the gelatin gave it a smooth, bouncy texture that was weirdly satisfying. It was salty, savory, and slightly spiced, making it rich and flavorful without being too heavy. Some versions were peppery and spicy, while others were herby and aromatic, giving every bite a complex, bold flavor. And let's be honest, they were weirdly good. The combination of salty, meaty head cheese on soft white bread was simple but surprisingly delicious. Some people added mustard or pickles for a tangy kick, while others kept it simple with just head cheese and bread. These sandwiches were super popular because they were cheap, filling, and packed with protein. Head cheese was affordable and long-lasting, making it a budget-friendly lunch that still felt rich and satisfying. If you wanted something sweet and wiggly, fruit gelatin cups were up next. Fruit gelatin cups. Fruit gelatin cups were the wiggly, jiggly, colorful treats that made lunch feel like a party. These weren't just any gelatin cups. They were brightly colored, sweet, and fruity, with little chunks of fruit suspended inside for a fun, chewy texture. They were sweet, wobbly, and just plain fun to eat. These cups were sweet, fruity, and perfectly jiggly. The gelatin was smooth and wobbly, melting in your mouth with a burst of fruity flavor. The fruit chunks added a chewy contrast, giving each spoonful a mix of textures that was weirdly satisfying. Popular flavors were strawberry, lime, orange, and cherry, but the real fun was mixing different colors to create swirly layered desserts. They were super popular because they were colorful, sweet, and easy to eat. You could scoop them out with a spoon, slurp them down, or even pop them out and eat them in one wiggly bite. These were perfect for lunchboxes because they were self-contained, no spills, no mess, and they didn't need refrigeration. Some kids even stacked different colors to make rainbow gelatin cups that looked super fancy. For those who liked something savory and tangy though, olive loaf sandwiches were the next bold choice. Olive loaf sandwich. If you've never heard of it, olive loaf is one of the most nostalgic lunch meats from back in the day. It's basically bologna studded with green olives and pimentos, giving it a salty, briny flavor that was weirdly addictive. Olive loaf sandwiches were salty, tangy, and just a little bit sweet. The bologna-like meat was soft, salty, and slightly smoky, while the green olives added a briny, tangy burst of flavor. The pimentos inside the olives gave a sweet, peppery contrast that balanced out the salty, savory meat. It was salty, sweet, and tangy all at once, making each bite ridiculously flavorful. These sandwiches were simple, made with soft white bread and a smear of mayonnaise or mustard. They were creamy, salty, and tangy with every bite. Some people added lettuce or cheese for extra crunch and creaminess, while others kept it simple with just olive loaf and bread. Straight to the point, they were super popular because they were cheap, easy, and just a little bit fancy. The olives gave them a pop of color and flavor, making them look and taste more exciting than plain bologna. For those who preferred something sweet and creamy, Ambrosia salad was the next retro favorite. Ambrosia salad.
Today on the Stay at Home Chef, I'm showing you how to make Grandma's Ambrosia salad.
When it comes to nostalgic desserts, nothing screams vintage vibes quite like Ambrosia salad. This wasn't your average fruit salad. It was made from canned fruit cocktail, mini marshmallows, shredded coconut, and sour cream or Cool Whip, all tossed together into a fluffy, sweet, creamy masterpiece. Colorful, fruity, and just a little bit wacky. Ambrosia salad was sweet, creamy, and just the right amount of tangy. The canned fruit cocktail was syrupy and sweet, with chunks of pineapple, peaches, pears, and cherries that were soft and juicy. The mini marshmallows added a chewy, sugary contrast, while the shredded coconut gave it a tropical twist that made every bite feel like a little vacation. Ambrosia salad was bright, colorful, and downright whimsical, making it the centerpiece of any lunchbox or potluck. And let's talk about texture. It was smooth, creamy, chewy, and juicy all at once. Some parents even got creative and added chopped nuts, maraschino cherries, or even a splash of fruit juice for extra flavor. If you wanted something just as colorful but a little wackier, Jello salad was up next. Jello salad.
Hey everybody, I'm Lisa. Now, you might think of a Jello mold as kind of an old-fashioned dish that belongs back in the 1950s or 60s, but I'm here to show you that this vintage dish belongs on your table today.
Back in the day, Jello salad was the ultimate retro dessert that was colorful, sweet, and just a little bit weird. If you've never had it, just imagine brightly colored gelatin mixed with fruit, whipped cream, or even vegetables, molded into wobbly, jiggly masterpieces that were half dessert, half science experiment. Jello salad was sweet, fruity, and just a little bit creamy. The gelatin was smooth and wobbly, melting in your mouth with a burst of fruity flavor. Some versions had chunks of fruit cocktail suspended inside, while others were swirled with Cool Whip for a fluffy, mousse-like texture. And yes, some people even added shredded carrots, celery, or cottage cheese for a sweet and savory twist. Jello salads were bright and colorful, coming in every color and shape imaginable. From lime green rings to layered rainbow molds, they were as fun to look at as they were to eat. Total nostalgia. For those who liked something creamy and savory, macaroni salad was the next classic. Macaroni salad. Macaroni salad
If you're looking for an easy side dish packed with flavor, then you've got to try my macaroni salad recipe.
Was the retro lunchbox staple that was creamy, tangy, and just a little bit sweet. If you've never had it, just imagine elbow macaroni tossed with mayonnaise, vinegar, sugar, diced vegetables, and seasonings, served cold and creamy as a sweet and tangy side dish. It was simple, satisfying, and surprisingly addictive. The elbow macaroni was soft and chewy, soaking up the creamy, tangy dressing. The mayonnaise made it rich and velvety, while the vinegar and sugar gave it a sweet and tangy balance that made every bite super satisfying. It was sweet, tangy, creamy, and just a little bit crunchy. This was the perfect lunchbox side dish because it was rich, filling, and easy to pack. It didn't get soggy and tasted just as good cold as it did fresh. Some people even added diced ham or cheese for extra protein. For those who wanted something sweet and fluffy, marshmallow fluff sandwiches were next. Marshmallow fluff sandwich.
When I was a kid, I would eat fluffernutters, peanut butter and fluff on a sandwich.
Marshmallow fluff sandwiches were the ultimate sugary treat that turned lunchtime into a sweet, sticky delight. These sandwiches were soft, sweet, and melt in your mouth gooey. The marshmallow fluff was light, airy, and sticky, spreading easily on the bread and oozing out the sides with every bite. It tasted like a melted marshmallow, sugary and sweet with a hint of vanilla flavor. When paired with peanut butter, it became a creamy, salty, sweet masterpiece, balancing the rich, nutty flavor with the fluffy, sugary marshmallow. This wasn't just a sandwich, it was a sugar bomb. It was so sweet and fluffy that it felt more like a dessert than a meal, but that's what made it so legendary. It was soft, creamy, and sweet enough to satisfy any craving, making it a total comfort food. And let's not forget the nostalgia. Marshmallow fluff was an old-school pantry staple that made every lunch feel special and fun. Some parents even grilled the sandwiches to make them warm, gooey, and extra indulgent, while others added sliced bananas or chocolate chips for a sugar overload. No regrets. For those who preferred something savory and meaty, meatloaf sandwiches were the next big thing. Meatloaf sandwich.
Welcome back, everybody. Today I'm going to be making a cheesy meatloaf sandwich.
If you grew up in the 60s or 70s, chances are you've had a meatloaf sandwich at least once. These weren't just any sandwiches. They were made with thick slices of leftover meatloaf, cold or warmed up, piled on white bread with ketchup or mustard. Meatloaf sandwiches were rich, flavorful, and super filling. The meatloaf was dense, meaty, and perfectly seasoned, usually made with a mix of ground beef, onions, breadcrumbs, and spices, topped with a sweet ketchup glaze that caramelized during baking. When sliced thick and layered on soft white bread, it was savory, sweet, and just the right amount of messy. They were the kind of sandwich that made you feel full and satisfied for hours. The herbs and spices in the meatloaf, combined with the sweet, tangy ketchup glaze, made every bite burst with flavor. Some people added lettuce, tomato, or cheese for extra crunch and creaminess, while others kept it simple with just meatloaf and ketchup. These sandwiches were the ultimate leftover makeover. If you had meatloaf for dinner, you were definitely getting a meatloaf sandwich the next day. It was resourceful, delicious, and a little bit nostalgic, making it a total lunchbox classic. For those who preferred something sweeter and a bit quirky, raisin bread sandwiches were the next nostalgic treat. Raisin bread sandwich. Raisin bread sandwiches were the sweet, fruity, and slightly spiced lunchbox surprise that were weirdly addictive. These weren't just any sandwiches, they were made with cinnamon raisin bread, spread with cream cheese or peanut butter, creating a sweet, creamy, and slightly tangy combo that was unexpectedly delicious. These sandwiches were sweet, creamy, and perfectly spiced. The cinnamon raisin bread was soft, sweet, and just a little chewy, with plump, juicy raisins dotted throughout. The cinnamon flavor was warm and aromatic, giving the bread a subtle spiciness that balanced out the sweet raisins. When paired with cream cheese, it became a sweet and tangy masterpiece, creamy and rich, with just enough tang to balance the sweetness. These were perfect for lunchboxes because they were sweet, filling, and easy to pack. They didn't get soggy or messy, making them perfectly portable. Plus, they were sweet enough to feel like a treat, but just healthy enough to pass as a proper lunch. These were also super versatile. Some parents toasted the raisin bread to make it warm and crispy, while others added banana slices, honey, or walnuts for extra sweetness and crunch. You could even grill them for a warm, gooey, cinnamon-spiced treat that tasted like dessert. For those who craved something more nostalgic and savory, nut bread with cream cheese was up next. Nut bread with cream cheese.
A cream cheese filling, that is? That's because today we are making cream cheese-filled banana nut bread.
This wasn't just any sandwich, it was made with thick slices of homemade nut bread spread with a generous layer of cream cheese. The bread itself was moist, dense, and slightly sweet, packed with chopped nuts like walnuts or pecans that added a crunchy, buttery texture. These were popular lunchbox treats because they were rich, filling, and perfectly portable. They didn't get soggy or messy, making them easy to pack and easy to eat. They were just sweet enough to feel like a treat, but rich and hearty enough to count as a real lunch. Plus, the cream cheese added a velvety, tangy layer of richness that made each bite feel indulgent and satisfying. Old school deliciousness, and let's be honest, they looked fancy. The contrast between the dark, nutty bread and the bright white cream cheese made these sandwiches look elegant and sophisticated, even if they were packed in a paper lunch bag. Some parents even got creative and added a drizzle of honey or a sprinkle of cinnamon, giving them a gourmet twist. If you were in the mood for something salty and snackable, Vienna sausages were the next nostalgic bite. Vienna sausages. If you've never had them, just imagine tiny sausages packed in a can, soaking in salty brine. They were soft, juicy, and ridiculously salty with a texture that was somewhere between a hot dog and a pate. These little sausages were super savory, tender, and perfectly seasoned. Made from finely ground meat, they were soft and smooth, almost like a meaty spread in sausage form. The salty brine they were packed in gave them an extra punch of salty flavor, making them weirdly satisfying despite their mushy texture. They were salty, savory, and just a little bit smoky, making them the ultimate snack food. These were crazy convenient too. The cans were small, portable, and didn't need refrigeration, making them perfect for lunch boxes. Just pop the can open, drain the brine, and eat them straight out of the can. No cooking, no prep, just salty, snackable goodness. They were easy to pack and easy to eat, making them a total lunchbox win. Vienna sausages were also super versatile. Some kids stacked them on crackers, turning them into mini sandwiches, while others wrapped them in bread or tortillas for a makeshift hot dog. You could even skewer them on toothpicks for a fancy bite-sized appetizer. For those who preferred a heartier sandwich, tuna salad sandwiches were the next nostalgic favorite. Tuna salad sandwich.
So today I'll show you how to make the best tuna salad recipe that you've ever had with really simple ingredients.
Tuna salad sandwiches were the savory, creamy classics that were rich, flavorful, and super satisfying. Made with canned tuna, mayonnaise, celery, salt, and pepper, they were creamy, crunchy, and just a little bit salty, piled high on soft white bread for a rich, flavorful lunch. These sandwiches were creamy, savory, and perfectly seasoned. The canned tuna was flaky and tender, soaking up the rich, creamy mayonnaise to create a velvety, flavorful mixture. The celery added a crisp, refreshing crunch, balancing out the rich, creamy tuna. Some versions included diced pickles or onions for extra flavor, while others added mustard or lemon juice for a tangy kick. It was rich, savory, creamy, and just a little bit crunchy. Total flavor bomb. These were super filling and packed with protein, making them perfect for busy school days. They were also easy to pack and easy to eat, staying fresh and flavorful even after hours in a lunchbox. Some parents even toasted the bread for a crispy, crunchy version that was extra satisfying. Classic nostalgia. For those who liked a salty, tangy twist, cheese and pickle sandwiches were the next big thing. So this cheese and pickle sandwich.
Today we're making a sandwich that uses pickles, everything I want in a very, very speedy lunch.
Cheese and pickle sandwiches were the salty, tangy, and slightly sweet combos that were surprisingly delicious. Made with sharp cheddar cheese and sweet pickle relish or bread and butter pickles, they were salty, sweet, and just a little bit tangy, piled on soft white bread for a flavorful, crunchy bite. These sandwiches were savory, tangy, and slightly sweet. The sharp cheddar cheese was salty, rich, and creamy, balancing out the sweet, tangy pickles perfectly. The pickles were crunchy, juicy, and just a little bit sweet, giving each bite a burst of flavor that made the cheese taste even richer and more savory. These sandwiches weren't just flavorful, they were super versatile. Some versions used sliced dill pickles for a crunchy, briny bite, while others used sweet pickle relish for a sweeter, juicier twist. You could even mix chopped pickles with mayonnaise to make a tangy pickle spread that melded perfectly with the sharp cheddar. These were popular lunchbox choices because they were quick, easy, and packed with flavor. They didn't need any fancy ingredients, making them budget-friendly and super convenient for busy mornings. And because they were salty, tangy, and just sweet enough, they satisfied every craving in one bite. For those who liked something salty and savory, deviled ham sandwiches were next. deviled ham sandwich. Deviled ham sandwiches were the bold, savory lunchbox classics that were rich, flavorful, and just a little bit spicy. Made with canned deviled ham spread mixed with mayonnaise, mustard, and spices, these sandwiches were creamy, salty, and perfectly seasoned, piled on soft white bread for a flavorful, satisfying bite. These were perfect for lunchboxes because they were rich, filling, and easy to make. Just spread the deviled ham mixture on white bread, slap on the top slice, and lunch was done. They were smooth, creamy, and perfectly seasoned, making them a total lunchtime win. Some people even toasted the bread for a warm, crispy version that was extra satisfying. These sandwiches were also super customizable. Some people added lettuce or pickles for crunch, while others added cheese slices for extra creaminess. You could even spread the deviled ham on crackers for a fancy, bite-sized snack. For those who liked creamy, comforting dishes, chicken a la king in a thermos was the next nostalgic treat. Chicken a la king.
I'm showing you how to make chicken a la king.
Packed in a thermos to stay warm, this was made from tender chicken chunks in a creamy, velvety sauce with mushrooms, peas, and pimentos, served over buttered toast or rice. It was warm, comforting, and ridiculously satisfying. This dish was rich, creamy, and perfectly savory. The chicken was tender and juicy, soaking up the creamy, flavorful sauce made from butter, flour, chicken broth, and heavy cream. The mushrooms were earthy and savory, while the peas added a pop of sweetness that balanced out the rich, creamy sauce. The pimentos added a splash of color and a slight tang that kept the dish from feeling too heavy. It was creamy, savory, and just a little bit sweet. This was the perfect thermos meal because it was warm, filling, and stayed creamy and flavorful for hours. It was rich and hearty without being too heavy, making it the ultimate cozy lunch. Some people even served it over noodles or mashed potatoes for extra comfort. If you wanted something sweet and spiced, Apple Brown Betty was the next old school favorite. Apple Brown Betty. Apple Brown Betty was a warm, spiced dessert made with sliced apples layered with breadcrumbs, sugar, and cinnamon, then baked until golden and bubbly. The sliced apples were tender and juicy, soaking up the brown sugar and cinnamon to become sweet, spiced, and perfectly caramelized. The buttery breadcrumbs were crunchy and golden, giving the dessert a crisp, textured topping that contrasted beautifully with the soft, juicy apples. It was warm, sweet, spiced, and just a little bit crunchy. These were perfect for lunchboxes because they were warm, cozy, and sweet enough to feel like a treat. In a thermos, they stayed warm and gooey until lunchtime, making them the perfect cozy dessert for chilly days. Some parents even topped them with whipped cream or a drizzle of caramel for extra sweetness. For those who craved something creamy and caramelized, butterscotch pudding cups were next. Butterscotch pudding cup. Butterscotch pudding cups were the creamy, caramelized treats that were rich, sweet, and perfectly smooth. Made from brown sugar, butter, milk, and cornstarch, they were creamy, velvety, and full of caramel flavor, packed into individual cups for a perfectly portioned dessert. The butterscotch flavor was rich and buttery, with a deep caramelized sweetness that tasted like toffee in pudding form. The brown sugar and butter gave it a rich, complex flavor, while the milk and cornstarch made it thick and velvety. It was sweet, rich, and just a little bit salty, making each spoonful ridiculously satisfying. These were crazy popular because they were perfectly portioned, easy to pack, and fun to eat. Just peel off the foil lid and dive in with a plastic spoon. Some kids even stirred and crushed graham crackers for a DIY butterscotch pie effect. For those who liked bold, savory flavors, sardine sandwiches were the next adventurous bite. Sardine sandwich. Think about canned sardines mashed up with mayonnaise, mustard, lemon juice, and spices, then spread on soft white bread with a sprinkle of black pepper. These sandwiches were salty, creamy, and perfectly savory. The canned sardines were rich and oily, giving them a bold, briny flavor that was super satisfying. Mashing them with mayonnaise and mustard made the spread creamy and tangy, balancing out the rich, salty sardines. The lemon juice added a bright, citrusy kick that cut through the richness, making each bite tangy and refreshing. It was salty, creamy, tangy, and just a little bit fishy. These were crazy popular because they were cheap, filling, and packed with protein. Canned sardines were affordable and long-lasting, making them a budget-friendly lunch that still felt rich and satisfying. Plus, they were ridiculously flavorful, satisfying any craving for something salty and savory. Some people even added pickles or onions for an extra punch of flavor. For those who preferred something sweet and chewy, Fig Newtons were the next nostalgic treat. Fig Newtons. These weren't just any cookies, they were soft, cakey bars filled with sweet fig paste, giving them a fruity, chewy center surrounded by a tender, golden crust. It was sweet, fruity, and perfectly spiced. The fig filling was thick and jammy, made from pureed figs mixed with sugar and spices, giving it a sweet, fruity flavor with a hint of warm spices like cinnamon and nutmeg. The outer crust was soft and and cakey, almost like a shortbread cookie, giving each bite a tender, buttery feel that melted in your mouth. It was sweet, fruity, chewy, and perfectly spiced. These were crazy popular because they were sweet, satisfying, and just a little bit wholesome. They weren't as sugary as other cookies, making them feel healthier and more sophisticated. Some parents even passed them off as fruit snacks because of the fig filling. They were perfect for lunchboxes because they were soft, portable, and easy to pack. They didn't crumble or melt, making them super convenient. Some kids even dunked them in milk for a soft, cakey treat. For those who crave something salty and meaty, Spam sandwiches were the next nostalgic bite. Spam sandwich. Spam sandwiches were the salty, savory lunchbox staples that were rich, filling, and weirdly satisfying. Made with thick slices of Spam fried until crispy and golden, then piled on white bread with mustard or mayonnaise, they were salty, smoky, and perfectly crispy. These sandwiches were salty, crispy, and just a little bit greasy. The Spam was salty, smoky, and slightly spiced, giving it a bold, savory flavor that was weirdly addictive. When fried, it became crispy and caramelized on the edges while staying juicy and tender in the middle. Paired with soft white bread and mustard, it was salty, smoky, tangy, and perfectly balanced. These were super popular because they were cheap, easy, and super flavorful. Spam was affordable and long-lasting, making it a budget-friendly lunch that still felt rich and satisfying. Plus, it was ridiculously versatile. You could fry it, grill it, or even eat it cold. For those who liked creamy, tangy sides, potato salad was the next classic. Potato salad.
Hey y'all, today I'm making some super easy potato salad.
Potato salad was a creamy, tangy side dish that was rich, flavorful, and just a little bit sweet. Made with boiled potatoes, mayonnaise, mustard, vinegar, and diced vegetables, it was creamy, tangy, and perfectly seasoned, served cold and refreshing as a savory, satisfying side. These were creamy, savory, and just a little bit sweet. The potatoes were tender and starchy, soaking up the creamy, tangy dressing made from mayonnaise, mustard, and vinegar. The diced celery and onions added a crunchy contrast, while the sweet relish or sugar gave it a hint of sweetness that balanced out the tangy mustard. It was creamy, tangy, sweet, and perfectly seasoned. Potato salad was a total lunchbox staple because it was creamy, filling, and perfectly portable. It didn't get soggy, stayed cool and refreshing, and paired perfectly with sandwiches, cold cuts, or even fried chicken. It was rich, satisfying, and always a crowd pleaser. For those who craved something sweet and crunchy, vanilla wafers were next. Vanilla wafers. Vanilla wafers were sweet, crunchy cookies that made any lunch feel like a treat. The vanilla flavor was warm and fragrant, giving each cookie a subtle sweetness that wasn't overly sugary. The texture was light and crispy, breaking apart cleanly with each bite and melting in your mouth into a sweet, buttery crumb. They were delicate, light, and perfectly balanced, making them addictive and fun to eat. These were perfect lunchbox treats because they were sweet, crunchy, and perfectly portioned. You could pop them in your mouth one by one or stack them up and take a big bite. They were easy to pack, didn't crumble, and stayed fresh and crispy all day. Vanilla wafers were sweet and simple, making them perfect for mixing and matching. Some parents used them to make homemade banana pudding by layering them with sliced bananas and vanilla pudding, creating a creamy, sweet dessert that was ridiculously good. Others used them as dippers for fruit or yogurt, turning them into sweet, crunchy spoons. For those who liked sweet and crunchy sandwiches, graham cracker sandwiches were the next nostalgic bite. Graham cracker sandwiches. These weren't just any sandwiches. They were made by spreading frosting, peanut butter, or marshmallow fluff between two crispy graham crackers, creating a sweet, creamy filling that was crunchy, sweet, and super satisfying. These were sweet, crunchy, and perfectly balanced. The graham crackers were crisp and slightly spiced, with a warm, honey-like sweetness that made them ridiculously good. The creamy filling was smooth and sweet, giving each bite a perfect balance of crunch and creaminess. Whether it was vanilla frosting, peanut butter, or marshmallow fluff, the filling made each sandwich rich, sweet, and totally satisfying. These were perfect lunchbox treats because they were easy to make, fun to eat, and just sweet enough to feel like a dessert. They didn't get soggy or messy, making them perfectly portable. Some parents even wrapped them in foil for a special surprise, turning a simple snack into a fun, sweet treat. For those who craved salty, savory sandwiches, bologna sandwiches were the next classic. Bologna sandwich. Few lunchbox staples are as nostalgic and iconic as bologna sandwiches. Made with thin slices of bologna on soft white bread, sometimes with mustard, mayonnaise, mayonnaise or ketchup. They were salty, smoky, and just a little bit greasy, making them the ultimate comfort food. These sandwiches were salty, savory, and just the right amount of smoky. The bologna was soft, salty, and slightly smoky, with a texture that was smooth and tender. It was salty, savory, and perfectly seasoned, making each bite rich and satisfying. When paired with soft white bread and mustard, it became a salty, tangy, creamy masterpiece that was simple but ridiculously good. These were crazy popular because they were cheap, quick, and easy to make. Just stack the bologna slices on white bread, slap on some mustard or mayo, and lunch was done. Some people even toasted the bread or fried the bologna for extra crunch. For those who craved sweet, buttery treats, butter and sugar sandwiches were the next nostalgic bite. Butter and sugar sandwich. Few snacks are as simple yet satisfying as the butter and sugar sandwich. You didn't need much to make this snack. No fancy ingredients, no complicated prep, just 2 slices of bread, a smear of butter, and a sprinkle of sugar. Yet it was more than the sum of its parts. There was something magical about how the sugar crystals sparkled against the creamy butter, or how the sweet crunch balanced the soft, salty richness. The bread was soft and fluffy, while the butter was rich, creamy, and slightly salty, giving it a velvety, smooth texture. The granulated sugar added a sweet, crunchy contrast, giving each bite a satisfying mix of soft, creamy, and crunchy. It was sweet, buttery, and perfectly balanced. It was the kind of thing you could throw together in seconds, yet it felt like a special treat. Some kids even toasted the bread first, creating a warm, crispy version where the butter melted into the hot toast, soaking up the sugar for a gooey, sticky delight. For those who liked rich, savory spreads, Liverwurst sandwiches were up next. Liverwurst sandwich. Liverwurst sandwiches weren't for the faint of heart. They were rich, creamy, and bursting with bold flavor. Made with slices of liverwurst, a soft, spreadable sausage, on rye or white bread, sometimes topped with a smear of mustard or slices of raw onion. These were salty, savory, and seriously satisfying. This was a sandwich that demanded attention. The liverwurst was smooth and velvety, with a texture almost like pâté, melting into the bread with every bite. It had a bold, meaty flavor that was rich, salty, and slightly smoky, carrying a hint of spice that gave it a complex, savory depth. It was intense and flavorful, making each bite an adventure. Pairing it with mustard added a tangy bite that cut through the richness, while onions brought a sharp, pungent crunch that balanced the smooth, creamy spread. Some people even added pickles for an extra briny kick, creating a bold, layered bite that was salty, savory, tangy, and just a little spicy. These were perfect for lunchboxes because they were rich, filling, and boldly flavorful. They were simple to make but sophisticated in flavor, giving them a grown-up vibe that made you feel fancy and adventurous. Some parents even toasted the bread to give it a crispy contrast to the smooth, creamy liverwurst, making it warm, crunchy, and absolutely delicious. For those who craved creative, seafood-inspired bites, mock lobster was the next quirky delight. Mock lobster, made with monkfish instead of actual lobster, this was savory, tender, and surprisingly convincing. If you've never had it, imagine chunks of firm white monkfish meat poached in seasoned water, then tossed in melted butter and lemon juice for a taste that was shockingly close to the real thing. Monkfish was known as the poor man's lobster for a reason. Its firm, dense texture was strikingly similar to lobster tail, with a mild, slightly sweet flavor that made it the perfect stand-in. Poaching it in seasoned water with bay leaves, peppercorns, and lemon infused the fish with delicate, aromatic flavors that enhanced its natural sweetness. When drenched in melted butter and a splash of lemon juice, it tasted rich, buttery, and unmistakably lobster-like. It looked, tasted, and even felt like real lobster, fooling even the most dedicated seafood lovers. Some people even served it in lobster shells, complete with drawn butter on the side, making it almost impossible to tell the difference. It was rich, buttery, slightly sweet, and perfectly tender, making it a seafood lover's dream without the seafood lover's budget. Mock lobster was perfect for lunchboxes because it was rich, flavorful, and just fancy enough to feel like a special treat. Packed in a thermos to keep it warm, it was tender, buttery, and downright luxurious. Some parents even sprinkled paprika on top for a pop of color and a touch of smoky flavor. For those who wanted a fun, bite-sized snack, pigs in a blanket were the next playful favorite. Pigs in a blanket. Pigs in a blanket were the playful, bite-sized snacks that made lunch feel like a party. These weren't just ordinary hot dogs. They were mini sausages wrapped in soft, flaky dough, baked until golden and crispy. Served warm or cold, they were salty, buttery, and irresistibly fun to eat. The mini sausages were salty, smoky, and just a little bit juicy, packed with bold, savory flavor. Wrapping them in buttery crescent dough gave them a rich, flaky crust that was light, airy, and perfectly crispy. The contrast between the crispy, buttery dough and the salty, juicy sausage was ridiculous ridiculously satisfying, making each bite a perfect balance of textures and flavors. They were fun because they were small and portable. You could eat them in one bite, making them fun to pop in your mouth one after another. They were easy to pack and easy to eat, making them perfect for lunch boxes. Some kids even dipped them in ketchup or mustard for a tangy twist. They were also super customizable. Some people added cheese slices inside the dough, creating a gooey, cheesy center that was melty and delicious. Others brushed the tops with a melted butter and sprinkled on sesame seeds or garlic powder for extra flavor. Total upgrade. For those who loved creative, snackable bites, cheese and bologna roll-ups were the next playful classic. Cheese and bologna roll-ups. Cheese and bologna roll-ups were quick, playful snacks that were fun to eat and ridiculously easy to make. Made by rolling slices of bologna around cheese sticks or spreadable cheese, they were salty, cheesy, and perfectly snackable. These were salty, creamy, and super satisfying. The bologna was slightly spiced, giving it a bold, savory flavor that paired perfectly with the creamy, mild cheese. Whether it was string cheese, cream cheese, or American cheese slices, the rich, creamy filling balanced the salty, smoky bologna perfectly. It was salty, creamy, cheesy, and slightly smoky, making each bite addictive and delicious. They were also fun to make and eat. Rolling them up was simple and playful, and eating them was even more fun. Some people cut them into bite-sized pinwheels, turning them into fun swirly snacks that were perfectly poppable. Others even stuck toothpicks in them for a miniature kebab effect, making them playful and fun to eat. For those who liked sweet and fruity combos, cream cheese and jelly sandwiches were the next delicious bite. Cream cheese and jelly sandwich. Whoever first combined cream cheese and jelly was a genius. This sandwich was a sweet and tangy masterpiece that brought together rich, creamy cheese and fruity, sugary jelly for a flavor combination that was surprisingly addictive. It was sweet, creamy, and just tart enough to keep things interesting. The magic of this sandwich was in the contrast. The cream cheese was velvety and smooth, with a mild, tangy flavor that was rich and luxurious without being overwhelming. It was creamy and slightly salty, giving it a savory edge that paired beautifully with the bright, fruity sweetness of the jelly. The jelly was sweet and sticky, bursting with a fruity flavor that balanced the rich creaminess of the cheese. There were so many ways to customize this sandwich. Some people used grape jelly for a classic twist, while others experimented with strawberry, raspberry, or even apricot jam for a bolder, fruitier flavor. You could spread the cream cheese thick for extra creaminess, or swirl it lightly for a more balanced bite. These sandwiches were perfect for lunch boxes because they were rich, sweet, and perfectly portable. They didn't get soggy or messy, making them easy to pick and eat. And because they were sweet enough to feel like a treat, but rich enough to feel satisfying, they were the perfect balance of dessert and meal. Some people even toasted the bread to make them warm and gooey, creating a sweet, creamy delight that was impossible to resist. For those who craved sweet, creamy, and nutty combos, peanut butter and banana sandwiches were the next delicious treat. Peanut butter and banana sandwich. Our last entry is an absolute lunchbox icon, made famous by Elvis Presley himself. This was the perfect blend of creamy, sweet, and nutty that made you feel like a rock star just by eating it. With smooth, rich peanut butter and perfectly ripe banana slices, this was sweet, filling, and ridiculously delicious. What made this sandwich so special was the combination of flavors and textures. The peanut butter was creamy, thick, and slightly salty, giving it a rich, nutty flavor that was smooth and satisfying. It was dense and velvety, sticking to the roof of your mouth in the best possible way, making each bite a deliciously chewy experience. The banana slices were soft and sweet, with a natural, fruity sweetness that balanced the saltiness of the peanut butter. They added a tender, juicy texture that was smooth and creamy, blending perfectly with the rich, nutty spread. Some people toasted the bread first, creating a warm, crunchy layer that made the peanut butter melt into the banana slices, turning it into a gooey, creamy delight. Others drizzled honey for extra sweetness or added cinnamon for a warm, spiced twist. You could even fry the whole sandwich for an Elvis-style treat that was crispy, buttery, and decadent. These were perfect for lunchboxes because they were sweet, filling, and perfectly portable. They were rich enough to be satisfying, but sweet enough to feel like dessert, making them the ultimate lunchbox win. And there you have it, 50 forgotten school lunches that once reigned supreme in lunchboxes everywhere. Some were simple and sweet, others were bold and savory, but they all had one thing in common. They brought joy to the cafeteria. It's wild to think how much lunches have changed. Today, it's all about organic snacks and balanced meals, but back then, butter and sugar sandwiches were a totally acceptable main course. Looking back, it's easy to see why some of these dishes faded away. Tastes changed, health trends took over, and some of these foods were just a little too quirky to stand the test of time. But for those of us who remember them, they're a delicious reminder of childhood. Even Even if you wouldn't dream of packing a Spam sandwich or Jello salad today, it's fun to look back on the weird, wonderful world of vintage school lunches. Maybe you're feeling inspired to try out a few of these yourself, or maybe you're just glad they're a thing of the past. Either way, let me know how you feel in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video for more content like this. Till next time, guys.